Welcome to this English Fluency Masterclass. Today you'll expand your vocabulary, learn advanced grammar, improve your pronunciation, and listen to fast-speaking natives. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, in this masterclass, you'll learn common phrasal verbs I use every day. First, let's review the category of socializing and small talk. So imagine a native speaker walked up to you and said, "When did you take up yoga?" What's the phrasal verb here? When did you take up yoga? To take something up, this is the phrasal verb, and it means to start an activity. And you start it as a regular routine. So you don't just do yoga once. It sounds like you're going to do yoga every week or twice a week. Now remember, your phrasal verb is take up, but you need to conjugate that according to the subject and time reference. So maybe you could say, I've been thinking about, so about is a preposition. I've been thinking about taking up tennis again this summer. So starting tennis as a regular activity.
Honey, when did Peter Griffin take up jogging?
Or maybe someone says to you, don't take up the negative imperative. Don't take up another activity unless you have time for it. That's good advice.
I could take up yoga.
You have the body type.
Or maybe you're thinking, thankfully I found Jennifer's channel shortly after I took up learning English. Is that something that you're thinking? If it is, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's say you're talking to your coworker and you say, he always brings up politics at work. What's the phrasal verb here? To bring something up. This means to start talking about a topic. Maybe you can say, can we not bring up that topic at dinner tonight? So this is a way of asking to not discuss something. Can we not bring that up?
So stop bringing it up. It's not fair.
Or maybe you say, he keeps bringing up her trip. He's clearly impressed. He keeps talking about it.
Thanks, Wally, for bringing that up.
Let's review this sentence and where is the phrasal verb? She really got along with my cousin. Do you know this one? And notice sometimes phrasal verbs have two prepositions. So the phrasal verb here is to get along with someone. And this means to have a good relationship with someone. So you could ask, are you getting along with your new coworkers? Or maybe they would get along better if they communicated more. So notice that conditional structure, and would is a modal verb, and that's why you have the base verb following it. They would get along.
What is it? You two don't get along?
We get along just fine.
Now maybe your friend says to you, you'll never guess who I ran into today. This is a must-know phrasal verb. Do you know it? To run into someone. This means to meet someone but by chance. So you weren't planning on seeing that person.
It's nice to run into you.
You could say, if I run into her again, I'll say hi this time. So if I see her again, but by chance. Or maybe I'll ask her for her phone number.
See, I ran into her at Target.
Or how about this one? I haven't run into anyone I know since I moved back home. So putting it in the negative means you're out in the world, getting groceries, going to the bank, but you haven't seen anyone you know. You haven't run into anyone. Now let's move on and imagine you're at a cafe. And let's review some common phrasal verbs. Maybe you go to order something and they say, sorry, we sold out of chocolate donuts. And you really wanted a chocolate donut. What's the phrasal verb here? Well, it's to sell out of something. So your verb is sell, and that's what you conjugate. And this means to have no more of something to sell to someone. So you could ask, do you think they'll sell out of those donuts again tomorrow?
They just sold out.
Already?
Or maybe, we're about to sell out, so grab one while you can. Now notice here the noun wasn't specified. We're about to sell out. If you specify the noun, that's when you add the additional preposition. We're about to sell out of donuts.
Sold out.
So they sold out of donuts, and you can say, I should cut back on sugar anyway. What's the phrasal verb here? To cut back on something. So notice again, we have that additional preposition on if you specify the something.
I think we need to cut back on our spending.
And if you cut back on something, you reduce the amount of something. So you could say, I've been cutting back on coffee lately. This is the present perfect continuous because it started in the past, maybe last Monday or last month, and it continues until now. I've been cutting back on coffee lately. It was giving me the jitters. This is the jitters. So this is why you need to cut back, reduce the amount. Or someone says to you, if you want to lose weight, I suggest cutting back on carbs. So reducing the amount of carbs. Now notice after suggest, you can use a gerund. I suggest cutting back on carbs.
We're not cutting back on food. Anything else?
Now you're still at the cafe and they say to you, we're trying out a new sugar-free cookie recipe. What's the phrasal verb here? To try out. This means to use or test something to see if it works well. For example, let's try out their new seasonal latte next time. Well, in this case, working well means you either like the taste of it or you don't like the taste of it, but you'll never know until you try it out.
Have you ever tried it out?
Or you can say after you try out the new blender, after you see how the blender works, let me know your thoughts. Was it a good blender, a bad one? Should I buy one? Do you recommend it? Let me know your thoughts. We're still at a cafe and you say to your friend, you only picked at your cookie. You don't like it? So the phrasal verb is to pick at, to pick at. If you pick at your cookie, it means you only eat a small amount of it. So we use this with food specifically. She picked at her salad, but barely touched the rest of her meal. So she ate a small amount of the salad. Maybe she didn't like it, or maybe she wasn't feeling well, she wasn't hungry. Who knows the reason? Or you can say, I was in a Zoom meeting over lunch and could only pick at my sandwich. Because you're on camera, you don't want to eat a big sandwich, so you just try to take a little bite whenever you can.
No, thank you. I'll just pick at yours.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Let's talk about phrasal verbs you can use with meetings and appointments. Someone could ask you, can we set up a meeting for next week? The phrasal verb here is to set up. And of course, this means to schedule or arrange. You can say, I'll be setting up a few interviews this afternoon.
The interview's already set up.
Or you can ask, did you already set up the call with the designer? Did you schedule the call? Did you set it up?
Set up a meeting.
Or if someone asks you, please follow up with us next week. This is a must-know phrasal verb. It's to follow up. Now you can continue on and say with someone, on or about something. So if you specify the reason why, you can use a preposition on or about. It doesn't matter which one you use, and native speakers use both equally. Now this means to continue a previous conversation. For example, I was supposed to follow up yesterday, but I forgot. I was supposed to call you to discuss something we previously discussed. Now remember, you can also say, I was supposed to follow up with you on the report or about the report yesterday, but I forgot.
I'm just following up on a chat room message.
Or you can say, it's been 3 days and they haven't responded. Should I follow up or should I wait? So should I continue that discussion we previously had or should I wait?
It's too soon.
Maybe your boss asks you, have you checked in with the client yet? What's the phrasal verb here? It's to check in with someone, and again, you can use on or about something. This means to contact someone, and you're doing that to make sure there are no problems. For example, don't forget to check in with them, maybe it's the clients or your team, before you go on vacation. So contact them to make sure they understand everything, they can access everything, there are no problems. Now again, remember, you can say don't forget to check in with them on the invoice or about the invoice before you go on vacation. Contact them to make sure there are no problems with the invoice.
If anyone finds anything, check in with me.
Let's review this sentence. My boss checks in with me every hour. It's annoying. We often use this with frustration because your boss contacts you every hour to make sure there are no problems.
Check back in with me in July.
Now remember that phrasal verbs have different meanings depending on context. So if you're at a hotel and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon.
Checking in?
Yeah, we're checking in.
This means register your arrival at a hotel. But if you're in a meeting and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon, it means to contact someone to make sure there are no issues. So you have to understand the context to know the meaning of phrasal verbs. How about this sentence? I blocked off an hour for our meeting. What's the phrasal verb? To block off. And this means to reserve time in your schedule. So someone might ask, should we block off some time on Friday? Should we reserve some time? Or you can say, I'm blocking off tomorrow afternoon to catch up on emails. So in your calendar, no one will be able to schedule time with you because you blocked it off.
I will block off the afternoon.
Now let's talk about giving compliments. How about this sentence? That outfit really brings out your eyes.
Brown one brings out your eyes.
What's the phrasal verb here? To bring out. Now remember, we previously learned to bring up. So also notice that changing the preposition can completely change the meaning. So here, to bring out, it means to emphasize, highlight, or make something more noticeable or attractive. So I could say to you as a compliment, words of praise, encouragement, support, great choice. That frame brings out the colors in the photo. Or I can say your confidence is starting to bring out the best in your team. So it's highlighting, emphasizing the best qualities. Let's review this sentence. I want to point out how well you handled that irate customer. What's an irate customer? An angry customer, an upset customer. And what's the phrasal verb here? To point out. This means to bring attention to something. For example, you've been doing such a great job lately, and I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to point that out. I wanted to emphasize that. So that would be a very nice thing to say to someone or say in a meeting to someone as well.
Thank you, Amy, for pointing that out.
You're so welcome.
Or you could say, I appreciated that you pointed out how much my design skills have improved. So you can offer this as words of appreciation to someone. What's the phrasal verb in this sentence? Who came up with this great idea? So the phrasal verb is to come up with. And again, if you specify the noun, the something, you need that additional preposition with, to come up with something. And this means to create or suggest an idea or plan. You're going to come up with something brilliant again, I know it. So you can offer that as words of encouragement to someone.
That's good. Who came up with that?
Or I can't believe you came up with that slogan on the spot. So on the spot means instantly. That's incredible. This next phrasal verb is a very positive thing to say to someone. You've really stepped up lately.
Thanks for stepping up today.
The phrasal verb is to step up. This means to take on more responsibility, or it can mean to improve one's performance.
I'm thinking about stepping it up.
So your boss might say, I noticed how you stepped up when the deadline was moved. I just wanted to point out the great leadership you showed. Or you can say, she's been stepping up in every way since Peter quit. So maybe she had to take on more responsibility because Peter quit, or she improved her performance because Peter quit, but she really stepped up. Amazing job. Now let's keep going and we'll read a news article together. As we read, you'll learn advanced vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation at the same time. Our headline, Mastery of Language Could Predict Longevity. Do you know what longevity is? Longevity is the concept of living longer, so living longer than average. Now, notice that pronunciation, longevity. So you hear this j sound, even though it is not there in spelling. And that's to help transition between this this G sound, longevity, longevity. Repeat after me, longevity. Used in a sentence, you could say he attributed his longevity. Longevity is a noun and it belongs to him. He attributed his longevity to exercise and an healthy diet. So using attributed is saying that these two things, it could just be one thing, but in this sentence, these two things are responsible for his longevity. So you could say it a different way. I wrote that here for you so you can see the sentence structure, and I used the verb to be responsible, the preposition for. Now, of course, your verb to be has to be conjugated. In this case, we have two items, so it is plural, are. Now, in this headline, mastery of language could predict longevity. So could be responsible for or could cause. But notice this use of the modal verb. Could is just used to say something is possible, but not necessarily guaranteed. So this doesn't mean that mastery of language will predict longevity. That is more definitive. This is simply a possibility. So notice could and then your base verb, could predict. In a study published earlier this year in Psychological Science, so notice the pronunciation of this, that P is silent. You hear the S, psychological. Now, this is an adjective. It describes the science, psychological science, just like biological science. So it's an adjective. The same pronunciation rule applies to the noun, psychology. This is the area of study, the field. You could say, I studied psychology in school. The same pronunciation also applies to psychologist, which is also a noun, but it's a job title. So you can say, I studied psychology and now I am a psychologist. This is the job title. In a study published earlier this year in Psychological Science, a team of researchers reported a link between verbal fluency and mortality risk. So we have A and B, two objects. Now the link or a link is a connection. So there's some connection between verbal fluency, the topic of this article, and mortality risk, your risk of dying. Mortality refers to death, so your risk of dying. Let's review this sentence. There's a link, it exists, the link, the connection exists. There's a link between, remember, two things, how much I watch Jennifer's videos and my English level. Now, this is a more formal or academic way of saying this. In everyday casual English, you could say, the more I watch Jennifer's videos, the better my English gets, because there's a link, there's a connection between them. Do you agree with this? Do you think the more I watch Jennifer's videos, the better my English gets? There's a link, a connection. If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And I certainly hope you do. Let's continue. Between 1990 and 2009, investigators assessed the cognitive abilities of more than 500 participants who were 70 years or older when the study began. Okay, so notice how they said 70 years. You could say 70 years, like they did here, or you could say 70 years of age, That's a little more formal sounding, but you will definitely see it. And let's review cognitive abilities. Cognitive refers to how you use your brain. So your ability to learn, to problem solve, to remember, to process information, all of that represents your cognitive abilities. And of course, as we age, our cognitive abilities generally decline. All of the study's participants are now deceased. Deceased is a politer way, a more formal way of saying dead. Now notice it's to be, so to be deceased, to be dead, and then you conjugate your verb to be because we have participants, it's plural. Now, they're dead because when the study started, they were already 70 years of age or older. So that's the reason why. All of the study's participants are now deceased, and researchers can use the results from the cognitive tests, so from their brain tests, to see if any of the measures are predictive of the participants' lifespans. So the participants' lifespans, you could say, are predictive of longevity. Now, saying are predictive of is another way of saying, can any of these tests predict longevity? So will any of these tests tell us if longevity is more likely or less likely? Now, remember that the concept of longevity means that you live longer than normal or longer than average. But just saying lifespan doesn't suggest that it's longer. So only that word longevity does. So you could say the measures are predictive of the participants' longevity, but that means their ability to live longer than average. Let's continue. Somewhat surprisingly, out of the areas tested, only one was related to decreased mortality. Verbal fluency. Now, somewhat surprisingly, so surprisingly means, wow, I didn't expect that to happen, but saying somewhat reduces that. So, I guess I didn't expect that, or yeah, I can see that. So it reduces the surprising element of it. You can use the word somewhat in a more everyday context and say, I was somewhat angry, or whatever emotion it is. I was somewhat angry when she forgot my birthday. So this is saying a little angry. I was somewhat angry. So very commonly used in an everyday context. Somewhat surprisingly, a little bit surprisingly, out of the areas tested, only one was related to decreased mortality, so reducing the risk of death, verbal fluency. So there's a connection, a link between verbal fluency and mortality risk. Specifically, the researchers found an almost 9-year predicted difference in median survival time between the study participants with high versus low values on verbal fluency. This might sound a little complicated. Let's make it easy to understand. In median survival time, and then 9-year difference. Okay. So median means average. So let's say there's an average survival time, how long someone lives, and it's 9 years higher for people with high verbal fluency. So they did studies, and if you scored high on verbal fluency tests, it was predicted, so people thought that you could live 9 years longer than someone who scored lower on verbal fluency tests. The use of that word predicted is important because they're saying it isn't guaranteed. It's simply a prediction. We think this will happen. This is a more academic way of describing it because this is in a research study, an academic research study. In everyday English, I would simply say the researchers found that people in the study with better verbal skills or higher verbal fluency were predicted to live almost 9 years longer than those, so than represents compared to those with lower verbal skills, or in this case, verbal fluency, but you can think of it simply as verbal skills. That's a more everyday way of understanding it. Now, the next part describes what verbal fluency is, because honestly, until I read this article, I didn't quite know what they meant by verbal fluency. So notice this: simply put. This is a great introduction phrase, and it means to say it simply. So to define it in simple words or simple terms, you can use these two. Simply put. Instead of put, you could say simply said. Simply put, simply said. Now, it's also quite common to use to say it simply, to put it simply. So you can still use these two words, two verbs, say or put. We'll use this one. Simply put, verbal fluency refers to how quickly people can produce words when asked to provide terms that match specific criteria. Now, keep in mind, they're not talking about fluency in a foreign language. They're talking about fluency in one's native language in the context of this study. And criteria refers to standards or rules that people need to follow or meet. So all the skills and experience or requirements in a job posting, you could refer to that as the criteria. For example, she met most of the criteria. So notice you can meet the criteria if it's required that you have skills. If you are following a procedure, then you can use the verb follow for directions or step by step. She met, the past simple of meet, she met most of the criteria for the job, so let's schedule an interview. Let's continue here. One of these was categories. So one of the criteria of verbal fluency was categories. And this involved, so they're letting us know what this means. And this involved naming as many animals as they could think of in 90 seconds, such as elephant, lion, monkey, and so forth. So, and so forth, you could also say and so on to say these three plus any other animal. So, and so forth, and so on. And remember, this is in one's native language. So this could be a fun game you play with your friends. Set a timer for 90 seconds and ask the friend how many animals they can name. And you can do this in English after, just for a fun exercise. The second measure, so we could say the second criteria, the first criteria was naming animals. The second criteria or measure was word beginnings. In this task, Participants were urged to produce as many words as they could think of starting with the letter S, such as see, shepherd, or surely. So notice, such as, these are the examples. You could say, for example, such as. Now this one just ended. They didn't say and so forth, but you could also just do comma and so forth and so on. And notice they both started with such as, for example. And again, this was in 90 seconds. Ooh, so this could be another fun game you play, and you can do all letters of the alphabet as well. And again, in your native language and in English. That would be a fun challenge. Let's talk about this verb, urged. Notice that pronunciation, urged, because this ED is pronounced as a soft D. Urged. And it really sounds like just an sound, urged. So the verb is to urge, and you urge someone to do something, and that means you strongly encourage them. I could say, I urged my students to like this video and leave a nice comment. I strongly encouraged my students. So I'll do that right now. Please, if you are finding this valuable, like this video and leave a nice comment, because it's the only way that I'm able to keep producing these lessons for free. So that is an example of how I urged you. I strongly encouraged you. And that wasn't just an example. Please do this right now. What do you notice about this sentence structure? Participants were urged to produce as many new words as possible, or as they could think of. Now, in this case, it's the passive form because it's talking about the participants receiving the urge. In my sentence, which was active, I was giving the urge. So I'm doing the action. In the passive voice, to change this sentence, I would start with, in this case, the object, the students, to be urged in the past simple, were urged, because it's plural, were urged to like the video and leave a nice comment. Now, you don't have to include who is doing the action, who is urging, but if you were to include it, you would say by Jennifer. The students were urged. Again, now you have two fun games you can play in your native language and in English as well. Let's continue. This echoes a previous study. Okay, so this echoes a previous study. Notice that this is a verb here, to echo, but what does this mean? This echoes a previous study. Well, what is an echo? Echo, echo, echo. If you're in a cave and you say, hello, 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 it says it again, right? So to echo something is to say the same thing. So to repeat. So this study repeats a previous study. It confirms the findings or confirms the information. Thinking of the definition of this verb to echo and what an echo, hello, hello, hello is, let's review this sentence. Learning English with the news is an awesome method. Do you agree with this statement? If you do, you can simply say, I agree, or you can say, I echo that, because again, echo, echo. So you're saying the same thing. I echo that. It's also very common to say, I second that. I second that, to mean the same thing. I repeat what you just said. So now you have two other ways to say, I agree. This echoes a previous study where researchers found an association. What else can you say? We learned it before. A link or a connection. So researchers found an association, a link, a connection, and then again, between A and B. In this case, between reading and longevity. So reading and your ability to live longer than average. So that was a different study. Remember, this study is about verbal fluency and longevity, but this study on verbal fluency and longevity echoes, confirms, or supports a previous study on reading and longevity. And in both studies, there's a link, a connection, an association between the two. In this study, so now this means this is always the last thing identified. So now this represents the study on reading and longevity, which is not the study we are talking about. So in this study on reading and longevity, researchers found that reading for an average of just 30 minutes a day, what's the length of this video? About 30 minutes, but you're not reading, you're more listening, but you're reading as well. So reading for an average of just 30 minutes a day was sufficient. Sufficient means enough, enough. It's more formal sounding. For example, 3 years of experience is sufficient, is enough to meet the criteria. Remember, you meet, the verb meet a criteria, to meet the criteria. So this could be for a job posting, and the criteria is, the requirement is 3 years of experience. So reading just 30 minutes a day was sufficient enough for the activity to be associated with a survival advantage. This with a survival advantage, it sounds like a very technical way of saying with longevity. Remember, longevity is your ability to live longer. So with longevity or with living longer, you could specifically say that. Or with a longer lifespan, because just the word lifespan doesn't mean long. It's neutral. So you would have to say with a longer lifespan. But remember, the word longevity includes longer life in it. And here we have our word associated, but notice here, an association, this is the noun form, a link, a connection, an association. All of these are nouns. So let me write that for you. These are nouns. Now this, to be associated with, associated functions as the adjective form. So because of that, the verb to be, this is the verb, and then this is the past participle functioning as the adjective. So I could use linked, connected, because those would be the adjective past participle forms, but I can't use with. I would say to be linked, to be connected. So I would use this same to be, and then I would use the ed form with linked, connected, but notice to something, to longevity. Now, if I were to use a verb such as living longer, I would use the gerund verb because to is the preposition that belongs with the expression. It doesn't belong to the word living. It's not the infinitive. It belongs to the expression, so it functions as a preposition, and you use the ing verb after prepositions. That's also why I have living here in the ing form, because the preposition in this case is with. So just remember, to be associated with something, but if you want to use linked or connected, it has the same meaning, but you use the preposition to something. Let's continue. An important caveat. Okay, do you know what a caveat is? A caveat is a warning or a cautionary note. So they just said that there's a link, a connection between reading for 30 minutes a day and longevity. But there's a cautionary note. There's some words of caution that I need to say about this point. That's the caveat. There's a warning or a limitation about what I just said. So let's review caveat, a warning or words of limitation or caution in this example. Learning English with the news can help you improve your fluency. That's true, but there's one caveat. So you can say there's one caveat, there's a caveat, there's an important caveat, and then you list it. What's the limitation? What's the warning? You need to practice everything you learn multiple times. So you need to take this lesson, watch it again, download the free lesson PDF, review all the vocabulary, write practice exercises, say it out loud, do that multiple times. That's the caveat. So what's the caveat in this study? An important caveat, however, is that the strongest association in this study was found for participants who predominantly read books as opposed to newspapers, oh no, and magazines, oh no. But remember, I'm not claiming that learning English with the news will help you live longer. That's what this is saying. I'm claiming it will help you improve your fluency. This study is about living longer. So apparently, reading 30 minutes a day, if it's the news or magazines, it isn't associated with longevity. It isn't linked to or connected to longevity. That's the caveat here. But again, my sentence to you was about improving your fluency. And who knows, maybe it will also help you live longer. And that is the end of the article. So what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish, and you can focus on my pronunciation. Mastery of language could predict longevity. In a study published earlier this year in Psychological Science, a team of researchers reported a link between verbal fluency and mortality risk. Between 1990 and 2009, investigators assessed the cognitive abilities of more than 500 participants who were 70 years or older when the study began. All of the study's participants are now deceased, and researchers can use the results from the cognitive tests to see if any of the measures are predictive of the participants' lifespans. Somewhat surprisingly, out of the areas tested, only one was related to decreased mortality: verbal fluency. Specifically, the researchers found an almost 9-year predicted difference in median survival time between the study participants with high versus low values on verbal fluency. Simply put, verbal fluency refers to how quickly people can produce words when asked to provide terms that match specific criteria. One of these was categories, and this involved naming as many animals as they could think of in 90 seconds, such as elephant, lion, monkey, and so forth. The second measure was word beginnings. In this task, participants were urged to produce as many words as they could think of, starting with the letter S, such as see, shepherd, or Shirley, in 90 seconds. This echoes a previous study where researchers found an association between reading and longevity. In this study, researchers found that reading for an average of just 30 minutes a day was sufficient for the activity to be associated with a survival advantage. An important caveat, however, is that the strongest association in this study was found for participants who predominantly read books as opposed to newspapers and magazines. Wow, think of everything you've learned. Now let's focus on your listening skills of fast English. Did you know that natives misunderstand fast English just like you? Don't believe me? Let's watch this clip.
Do you want the cancer?
The what?
Do you want the cancer?
Notice how George Clooney didn't understand her question at all. He said, the what?
The what?
Are you also unsure or confused by her question? He still doesn't understand after she repeats it, so she says it again slowly. Now let's see if you can get it too.
Do you want the cancer?
The what?
Do you want the cancer? The can, sir?
Problem number 1, natives use connected speech. That's why can, sir, sounded like cancer, because they are the same sounds. So when you don't put a pause between them, do you want the can, sir? Do you want the cancer? 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 It's exactly the same. This makes for a memorable scene in a movie, but it happens in real life every day. Let's find out what you hear in this clip.
And why'd you lie?
It started with then. Did you hear the rest? Let's listen again.
And why'd you lie? And why'd you lie?
He said, then why'd you lie? Why did you lie? Then why'd you lie? But that was very difficult to hear, right? A native would definitely misunderstand this too. Why did you sounds like why'd you? why'd you. In connected speech, why'd you. But notice, we have Jew, but then the next word is lie, lie. And July sounds like the month July. June, July, August. So the combination of why did you lie can absolutely sound like the question, why July? Why not June? Why not August? Why July? I'm going to say both, and you tell me if I'm saying number one or number two. Why July? Which one? I said number two. I'll do this again. Why July? Which one? I said number two. Why July? Which one? I said number one, but let me tell you, there's no way a native speaker would distinguish between the two. So what's the solution? Of course, you can simply ask the person to repeat it again and maybe specify slowly. Or another great solution is to understand the context. In the context of a beverage cart coming down the aisle on an airplane, maybe you can understand the context is a can of soda. Or maybe with the why July, maybe they were just discussing a lie that someone told. So the question, why July, you understand the context based on what you were discussing. Let's see what you hear in this clip.
Did you call her?
That was fast, even for a native. What did she say? Let's listen again.
Did you call her? Did you call her?
She said, did you call her? But in connected speech, we can take call her and it becomes caller, caller. But this may cause confusion because the same pronunciation is a caller, which is a dog collar. Now in this clip, did you was also connected as did you, did you. Did you call her? Did you call her? The solution to understanding fast English is getting comfortable with the connections that natives make. Let's listen to some clips and see if you can identify the connected speech.
Give me a break.
The speaker said, a break.
Give me a break. Give me a break.
Did you get it? Did you? Did you? Did you? Did you get it? Gimme, gimme, give me as a reduction is gimme, gimme.
Give me a break.
How about this clip?
I gotta go.
I go.
I gotta go. I gotta go.
She said, I gotta go. Was that easy for you? Most students, even at a more beginner level, know that got to as a reduction is gotta. A reduction is a form of connected speech where you take two words and it sounds like one. This isn't something that native speakers think about. I don't think to myself, I'm going to use the reduction. It just comes out naturally because it's easier to say gotta instead of got to. And that's the only reason why natives use it, even though it definitely makes speech more difficult to understand, even for natives. That's why doing this practice is so important. How about this one?
What do you want?
Want?
What do you want? What do you want?
He said, what do you want? So here, what do you is a very common reduction of three words that sounds like one. Repeat after me. What do ya? What do ya? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? How about this clip?
So, what you want to do today?
Did you get the full clip? So, do today.
So, what you want to do today? So, what you want to do today?
He said, so, whatcha? What do you? Now it sounded like whatcha, whatcha. So you may ask someone, what you doing? What you doing? And notice that G at the end was also dropped. What you doing? But remember, it can also sound like what'ya. So we have the same three words, what do you, and two different reductions that are both common. What'ya, whatcha. What'ya is more common, but definitely you will hear whatcha. And that wasn't the only reduction because we also had want to, wanna. So you can say, what you wanna do tonight? What do you wanna do tonight? Exactly the same meaning, different pronunciation, and very different from what do you want to do tonight? Let's try this one.
Well, it could have been worse, right? Could have been my money.
This was longer. Did you get it? It been worse, right? Been my money.
Well, it could have been worse, right? Could have been my money. Well, it could have been worse, right? Could have been my money.
He said, it could have been worse, right? Could have been my money. Could have, which is grammatical, is reduced to coulda. Coulda is not a word. It is the way that the words could have are naturally pronounced in fast, casual English. So notice we're taking that entire word have and we're reducing it to but you're connecting it to could, coulda. The same is done with should have, shoulda, would have, woulda. Another thing to notice in this clip is how the subject was dropped. Natives often drop subjects and auxiliary verbs. This may be confusing for students, but natives generally understand based on context, even when grammar isn't always there. So full grammatical structure would be, it could have been my money. That's full structure and clear pronunciation. Unfortunately, for everyone, including natives, this will often sound like could have been my money. Let's try this clip.
I'm gonna be late for homeroom.
I'm B for homeroom.
I'm gonna be late for homeroom. I'm gonna be late for homeroom.
She said, I'm gonna be late for homeroom. So here we have the reduction going to gonna. Most students know that. Just remember, this isn't a word, it is the pronunciation of going to in fast spoken English. And did you notice how late? You may not hear that T. So it may cause a miscommunication because it will sound like late, late. So it may sound like the word lay. The only thing is a native speaker would use a flap sound, which means we stop the sound, late. Now let's listen to this one.
I'm just gonna be a little late.
I'm just a little.
I'm just gonna be a little late. I'm just gonna be a little late.
Alec Baldwin said, I'm just gonna be a little late. So again, we have gonna, going to is gonna. Now in this case, because late came at the end of the sentence, it's more likely you'll hear the T, but it was still a softer T. It wasn't as pronounced as you'll hear it in a dictionary audio clip where it will say late. In real spoken English, it sounds more like late or late. A very soft T, even at the end of a sentence. Now let's see how you do with this clip.
Say, talent's a dime a dozen.
Did you get it? See talents?
Say, talent's a dime a dozen. Say, talent's a dime a dozen.
He said, see talents, a dime a dozen. A dime a dozen. Now here you may hear the individual words, but not understand what it means because this is an idiom, a dime a dozen. This doesn't have a literal meaning, so you can't take the words and understand the meaning. A dime a dozen means very common, easy to find, so therefore it's not special or valuable. Everyone's talented, you need more than that. Talent's a dime a dozen. Let's try this one.
Really? Get out of town.
Did you get it? Really? Get?
Really? Get out of town. Really? Get out of town.
He said, really? Get out of town. Get out of town. So here we have a reduction out of, outa, outa. But again, you need to understand the expression to know the meaning, because the individual words don't have a literal meaning. The expression is get out of town. This is what you can say that means that's surprising, or I'm surprised, or that's interesting news. So if your friend, sister, husband says, I got a promotion and it comes with a new company car, and you want to express your surprise, you can say, get out of town, get out of town, with that reduction, outa. Get out of town, get out of town, a new car, that's amazing.
Get out of town.
So learning connected speech is important, but also learning advanced grammar, phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions is so important to understand natives. How about this one?
I'm not hangry, Tito.
Did you hear it? I'm not Tito.
I'm not hangry, Tito. I'm not hangry, Tito.
She said, or exclaimed, I'm not hangry. I'm not hangry, Tito. So hangry is a relatively new word in the English language. It's a combination of hungry and angry. So it means that you're becoming angry because you're feeling hungry. Do you ever get hangry?
Hungry and angry? You hangry, Claire.
I'm not hangry, Tito.
Now, if a native speaker uses this with their grandparents who are older, or a boss or a neighbor who is older, they may not understand it because new words may be unfamiliar to certain people, generally older generations, but it can also be a younger person as well. But younger people, they usually know the new trends, the new words. So now you know what you need to do to understand natives and avoid those miscommunications. You need to keep listening to natives, study connected speech, study fast speech, expand your vocabulary, and all of my lessons will help you do just that. So put let's go, put let's go in the comments if you want another lesson. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.